Welcome back to Shred with Ed. Today is a very exciting day for me. We are going to my friend's house to start the partition wall on my van. If you've been following along on the channel, you'll know that the wall was a very big concern of mine, not only for safety reasons to keep bikes from, tumbling into the front part of the van if I had a hard stop or an accident, but also to keep a lot of the smells from the gas of my dirt bike and just the general dirt and grime from dirt biking and mountain biking out of the front of the van to keep it clean and livable up here. One of my friends is a very reputable builder, and he built his own transit van out. It's the same height and length as mine, so we're gonna model a lot of what he did, but I'm gonna try to still bump out a shelf to make it just a little bit easier for when we travel and we have a place to put luggage. So without further ado, let's get started. So after a quick trip to our local big box store, we got back with some 2x3 and 3/8 inch plywood. I started to frame out the lower part of the wall, which is essentially going to be where I mount my E-track for my dirt bike tie-down mounts and wheel chocks. This has to be the strongest part of the wall, as whatever is pushing against it is going to be relatively heavy, and I want to stay safe in the event of an incident. Fortunately, Mike, who's helping me build this, has a wall made out of the same material that's been holding up just fine for the last couple of years. After taking some measurements to make sure the bikes would still fit, we drilled into the frame of the van just below the crew window. There's a good thick piece of metal that will provide ample support for our wall. And after that, we had to essentially just build the shelf that would allow us to attach to the next beam in the van to further stabilize the wall. Here's a quick look of the bottom part of the bulkhead. As you can see, this right-hand side of the passenger side of the vehicle is going to be a little difficult to frame in, but we'll get to that as soon as we add the shelf. With the shelf complete, we just had to figure out how to attach it to the passenger side of the van. And we decided the best thing to do was to just add another 2x3 and figure out how to wrap it later. We decided to pull the rear trim down so we could drill into this beam in the ceiling for the top part of the wall. I had to relocate this wire to the other side of the beam so that I wouldn't drill through it on accident. But once that was done, we made some 2x3 frames to add in there for more support and drill right into those beams. That way it made it up perfectly with the end of the factory headliner. These 2x6s I'm going to mount for adding a cabinet later on. As I added these 2x6s, Mike started to cut out plywood framing to cover the wall up. The most difficult part is going to be, of course, the top where you have the curve of the factory headliner, and this section right here where it mates to the sliding door. But fortunately we used some cardboard to frame it up, and I'll have to figure out how to fill in this gap in the bottom later on. Alright, so day two. We got all the framing done. We cut all the plywood to piece it together and seal the wall up. Now I just have to paint one side. I'm going to paint the garage side and then carpet the crew cab side, just to have something a little bit nicer. And then I'm also going to carpet this side just to have, a little nicer piece. Then obviously I still have to screw everything together, and I have nicer finishing screws for this, and then I have to just cut what's needed for the carpeting. But we're going to get started on the paint because that's probably going to take the longest. It's going to rain today, so that makes things more complicated, but we'll just do the best we can. Alright, so with the rear wall panels off, I'm going to paint everything with like an exterior paint, just so something that's easy to clean. I'm going to run a piece of E-track across this, so it shouldn't get too scuffed up, and those are obviously going to go on the bottom of the shelf. This, I might actually carpet, so we'll see. For paint, I went with just a regular exterior paint, no primer since the plywood was bare. It's very similar exterior paint to what you'd use if you were to paint a shed or a deck. It did a really good job covering, only needed 2 coats per piece of plywood, of course, and it almost matches the van perfectly, which was completely on accident, but ended up working out real nice. So first coat's down. Actually really like the color. It's nice. I think it's going to blend really well with the van, the color of it. Just in time for the rain, so to cool the air down, I have a fan in here. Hopefully things will dry real quick. We'll get a second coat on this, and then I can start wrapping the carpeting panels. Alright, so the first wall panel's in. Next we have to do the E-track going across the back of it. Well, the middle of it. I'm going to measure 1 foot from the ground and just make some marks and keep going from there. So one thing you didn't see earlier was we added a 2x6 beam to the wall frame so that we could secure the E-track to this. This allows not only the E-track to be securely screwed into something, but it also provides additional support for the front tires of the motorcycles as they push into it when you strap them down tighter. I have a pretty neat set from MotoPro HQ that are these wheel chocks that you can angle, and the plan is to be able to put 2 dirt bikes in here with the handlebars turned into the corner you see where the plywood wall will meet the van. So the test fit is complete. I think it looks really good. The carpet helps get rid of some of the rougher edges, which is fine. Now we just got to tack it up. So I really didn't expect to carpet this. I was going to paint it, but I'm really glad that I ended up carpeting it because, as I said earlier, it does smooth out the edges, and it also prevents the bare plywood from vibrating off the wall. As I've said repeatedly in this build, road noise would be the biggest thing I'm trying to mitigate. Alright, so we're back again. Just another day. I'm going to finish this side up. I have to insulate everything, but first take a few measurements for where the cabinets are going to go on the back side of the van. I rated pretty good with the garage side. Might just go in and paint a little bit or do some trim work. But other than that, it's pretty good. I can't wait to get the bikes back in here and see how everything looks. So, using the same Rockwell insulation that we insulated the garage area with, I went ahead and started pressing this in there, following the same rule of not too compressed so that it can still move to reduce vibration and sound and still insulate. This is actually still the same bag I used for the rear of the van, just to give you a measure of how far one bag of Rockwell could actually get you. It's definitely a very affordable solution in my opinion and shouldn't go overlooked. One thing I had to do was rip each sheet about halfway so it would fit in between the plywood pieces and the 2x3. So I guess that's the only real downside to using this is there's a lot of manual cutting and trimming you have to do to get it in there, because it's meant to fit between regular household 2x4s and regular building material instead of, you know, smaller things like this. But you just got to get in there. It gets messy. You know, rip pieces apart, shove it into every nook and cranny in the van you possibly can, because that will save you some real headaches when driving on down the road. But with the installation completed, it was time to fit the wall in. We measured perfectly, as this panel was able to fit just against the factory plastic trim on the lower portion of the van as well, which was great, so we don't have to cut or trim any of the factory material. And we were also able to use the factory material with our templating of the pieces too, so everything looks like it somewhat belongs. I decided to leave a little bit of a lip on the front wall part of the plywood, so that when we put luggage and other storage items up there, they wouldn't slide forward and off the shelf from braking or just general driving. Hope it works out. If not, I can always adjust it later, or put another piece of trim over it, or maybe some L-track with some bungee cords if I really had to secure something. But I think this will really do fine. The shelf is only about 12 to 14 inches deep, I believe.
Alright, so the last piece is up. The edge is a little rough, but I might use this as maybe a way to hang something, or I don't know yet. I have to just kind of trim in more here. I don't really know what I'm going to use, but if you have any suggestions, let me know. But I'm really glad or satisfied with how the carpeting came out. Should probably figure out how to wedge this up a little bit better, but not bad. I mean, this is my first van build ever. I'm not a handy person. So really glad with how this came out. It's nice and quiet in here like I expected. I maintained factory cup holders and everything, so it's pretty good. So I guess we'll get it cleaned up and we'll get some bikes inside of it and see how it looks. Alright, so I think I'm getting a little too confident with the carpeting, but I'm gonna carpet all of this just to kind of blend this in better and make it look like it belongs here. I was thinking about painting it, but I don't know. I think it could probably be just as effective with some staples and the carpet, since it is just a trim piece, and it'll do well. And then I'll just have this little gap down there to worry about. So let's get started.
Originally, I wanted to stay away from too much carpet just because I figured it could easily get dirty, but after looking at other builds and how things are done, more specifically with AVC Rig out in Colorado, they use a lot of carpet, and it makes sense because it does provide additional insulation and sound deadening, which is obviously the main goal here. And it honestly isn't that hard to work with. You just have to have a good staple gun and the confidence to rip a sheet down and cut a new piece out.
Alright, moment of truth. Let's see if dirt bike will fit. I think it should. I don't think I'm gonna have any issues, but God, I'm so happy for this. All right, well, it literally just fits, so that's good news. We'll probably just maybe bolt the wheel chock directly to the wall or get rid of it if need be, but this will do for now. In the meantime, let's get some mountain bikes in here and see how that looks. All right, so I think it's finally done. Let's give you a quick proof of concept, but look at that. Got the stump jumper, which actually just found out has a flat tire, so that's nice. The enduro. I could probably even squeeze another one-up tray in here if I wanted to, but then of course we have a dirt bike. Everything fits. This was a little scary, but the door has a bump out, so it fits just fine. Next will be figuring out if I want to do some cabinets or shelving up top. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for this. Next thing to do is plan some trips and use this thing. So thanks for watching, guys.